Hi, and welcome to the It's Just Business podcast with myself, Richard Price. In this podcast, I interview some of the best business minds and entrepreneurs, diving deep into their business journey to get those valuable business lessons they have learned for entrepreneurs like you to succeed on your business journey. So listen up, listen in, let's begin. Hey everybody, it's Richard here. Welcome to the It's Just Business podcast. Today I am joined by Richard Marshall. He is the owner of Pall Mall Barbers. Hey Richard, nice name.
Yeah, Rich, I was going to say that's a beautiful name you have there. I'm really fond of it.
I know. It's great minds, great names.
Exactly. Touche.
Thanks for joining us. I think this is going to be a good episode and one that many of the listeners be super interested in. Now, Pall Mall Barbers, it's pretty much what it says on a tin, but there's a nice backstory to it. So, could you just introduce yourself, a bit about you, and how Pall Mall got started?
Hey, I'm Richard Marshall. I'm the founder and CEO of Pall Mall Barbers, which I took over, brought 15 years ago, and discovered a gem of a barbershop and a gem of a bit of history. I found out it dated back over 100 years. This year it's going to be 125 years old. It's one of the oldest barbershops in London.
Wow.
And originally when I brought it, I was doing it up, I remortgaged my flat. I saved everything to buy my flat. And then I remortgaged it to and found this business. A client offered me, this particulars of this store, and I brought it. So when I started to do it up, I found an old business card which dated back over half a century, and it was originally called the Pall Mall Toilet Saloon. And there's so many funny stories about that. But the toilet meant, 125 years ago, it actually meant toiletries, because people didn't have bathrooms and places to wash. They smelt. So that's where perfume comes from, where they used to put perfume on them and stuff like that. So in St. James, that's very famous. It's got one of the oldest barbershops in the world, and a lot of the old barbershops were perfumeries as well, and done scents and things like that. So it comes from a really good stock of area of classic global barbering brands. So I was very lucky that I found this hidden gem in right next to Trafalgar Square.
Wow, that's amazing. You bought a sort of heritage essentially, and a great one at that. Thanks for that, Richard. Taking a step back, what made you get into barbering? What was you a barber before? And sort of how did you come across this business? And what made you want to go? Where was your drive from going from barbering, or if you was a barber, to owning your own business?
Okay, so as a child, as a small boy, at school and stuff, I'm very dyslexic. So going through schooling, I had a real challenge of reading and writing, and being in the bottom sets, being disruptive, and it was a really challenging, difficult period of my life. And basically, I got kicked out of school when I was 15. And one of my teachers just sort of said to me, you're going to go nowhere, and literally just kicked me out. So I was kind of like, and that lit a fire under me, and then I started working in a barbershop. My dad had said to me from a young age, just get a trade, son, so I did. So I was working in a barbershop from the age of 12, sweeping the floors and working up. And it was just a natural sort of organic step to go in, and I started cutting my friend's hair quite young. And then when I got kicked out of school, it meant that I could go and train, and I fell into barbering, and then I went to college for it, which I was not particularly that good at the women's and the hairdressing part, but men's, I won every award. I won lots of awards. I just turned really successful from just that determination to do. And I could see, and I could look at things, and I could see it, and I could touch it. and
Mm.
then I just become really successful from 16, 17. I won lots of competitions, and and then that was my journey. When I was 21, I moved to London. I was obsessed with London. My nan took me when I was a kid to the city, and I remember the buses in King's Cross and the double deckers and the route masters, and I just had this obsession with this city, and learning about it and exploring it. And so when I had the chance, my first chance, I moved to London and then just started working in Mayfair, just off Savile Row, um, which it was game changing for me, really, because I come from humble beginnings, really, and then all of a sudden I started working in a big city. I started working in Mayfair. I started to, unknowingly at the time, but I was mixing with really famous people. I was mixing with like hedge fund owners. I built up a clientele of really wealthy people what were really doing things, like people. What one of the guys was one of the guys what helped build iTunes. There
Right.
were hedge funds. There was tailors, like all the tailors on Savile Row. There was
Mm.
property guys. And it was just a really that period was, I just met these amazing, clever people, and unknowingly, I learned so much how to talk to different people.
Mm.
I asked them questions about specific things. I learned so
Mm.
much of them, and that period was massive for me.
I can only imagine, actually. You at the sort of ripe age of 21, you had the sort of this bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, come into the city, and you fall in pretty amazing place with the hustle and bustle of Mayfair, which is pristine. You've got the great cars, and there's these figures that walk around, with their sharp suits, and you're doing high-end haircuts, I imagine, right? You're not doing any back of the street haircuts.
Well, no, it was really fascinating because I started to, some of the people I met, and I heard some great stuff, and these people were really successful, and there was a couple which were really, really high profile, and
Mm.
I mean they were like high, really, really, really out there, and they would come and share stuff with me which you just would not expect them to say, because we had that sort of relationship where it was really, we were really close, but on a personal level. It wasn't
Mm.
the the projection of what people wanted to see. It was actually what they were actually doing in their spare time, and
Mm.
learning about their personal issues. But what's said in a barber's chair stays in a barber's chair.
That's a good motto.
It's barber code.
Barber code. I love it. So it's like what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, but except for yeah.
That's another.
um, that's definitely another story. um, but I mean, as a barber, I mean, yeah, I guess it's a time of talk therapy, or it's a time for relaxing, and I guess these. It's for me when I'm always in the seat, I just just zone out, and I'm just there, I'm present, and it's great. And I guess as a barber, you've got these personable skills that you're sharpening each day, and it's a very personable thing. You might someone might go to you because they like you as a person, they like the conversation. So I can only imagine you've got this natural sort of gravity, or this great personable skills that you've developed, and it's helped you over time.
100%. It was really interesting when I went to my first networking event, and I hadn't really been to any networking events, and I got invited by the Department of International Trade to go to Dubai, when I was looking to export my products and business, and so on. And they took me to this networking event, and it was at the Barge Arab, the big sail hotel right on the coast, and it was at
Yeah.
the top floor. And I walked in there, bearing in mind, I've got humble beginnings and stuff like that, and it was all these like faces of retail, like it was like people, really top level people. And I walked in there, and I was like, oh my god, what do I do? And I didn't have a clue, and I had to ask someone. So what do you do here? And then I just to talk to people, and then it was kind of, once I got over myself,
Yeah.
basically, and just started having a chat with people and making people laugh and stuff like that. It was very natural. But then I realized that I'd developed these skills for like all my career of being a barber, chatting to random stranger people and making them feel comfortable. And most people in networking events don't really feel comfortable. So it kind of worked for me, and I managed to, build some really good contacts and really had an amazing experience.
Great. Yeah. And I think, as an old saying goes, your show me your network and I'll show you your net worth. It's networking is super important. Rich, so tell me, so you're working in Mayfair. How did you come about buying Pall Mall Barbers? How did that process work? And could you just tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, I can. You know, the thing is, I was working for someone for like 8 years, and it was kind of a dead end job. And people who know me, I'm an innovator, I'm a creator, I have energy, I love this stuff, and I was coming up with ideas, and I was really wanting to progress, and I was quite comfortable where I was, but I had a lid on me. I would never, no one, people would take my ideas, they wouldn't give me any credit, and I was just sort of there, I couldn't move anywhere. So, and I always had an ambition from a very young age to be, to go into business. And there were certain reasons why I didn't do that. And that was down to multiple different facets, but, maybe support or people getting behind me from a young age. That would have been got
Mm,
me out when I was 16, for example,
mm,
instead of like being older.
mm,
So, and it was just by fate. The one of my clients who had built a relationship just come in with the particulars of this store,
mm.
and basically I went to see it, and I just fell in love with the sinks and the taps, and it was
The sinks and the taps.
yeah, the sink and the taps. I'm not even a sink and a taps man, but the thing is, what happened was it was just this thing. I just fell in love with it, and I was just like, wow, I've just got to have this. And it was a gut intuition. And then it was just like how it was going to happen. And I remember sitting down, like once I got this business, because I didn't know anything, right? I didn't know any I couldn't read and write. I had no management skills. The first 5 years, I
Mm,
must admit, I went to hell. Um, I really did. It was tough. It was really tough. I was working 7 days a week. It was tough. And I had to learn everything the hard way, like hard
mm,
yards,
mm,
until I started doing business courses and learning and stuff like that and opening my mind. That's when I started to really excel, in it. But
mm.
it was tough. It was tough, but it was worth it.
What was so tough about it? Could you give us a bit of a flavor as to what made those 5 years so tough?
Um, I didn't have the skills. I didn't have the people skills, to manage. I've never managed anyone. I've never done any books. My attention span was very, tiny. I couldn't, read and write literally, so I had to ring my dad and ask him how to write checks and, stuff like that. And, really embarrassing stuff. I say this for a reason, because I put it
Mm,
out there because I think for people who are dyslexic and stuff like that, it's very powerful to just put it out into the universe, and people will identify with that. And then I want to give a solution to that as well. And basically it was tough. It was just everything about it. So, but once I started to sort of open my mind to learning and doing courses and self development and stuff, that's when it really started to change. And gradually,
mm,
I had successes, little successes. I used to call my dad on a Friday with the takings, and oh, Dad, I've done this. I've done this. I think I can get it to this. And then, Dad, and it was just this little step by step sort of thing. And
mm,
gradually,
mm,
I got some self belief. And then when that happened, things really, in the last 7 years, my career's taken off to, astronomical sort of successes, right?
No, that's great. I mean, perhaps perhaps you can sort of kind of tell us where you are now. Give us a bit of a flavor as to how big you've grown this business.
Well, right now all the stores are shut. Right, it's in lockdown in London, so it's like
Indeed.
it's a different challenge. But the
Indeed.
reality is you know where I am today. So I've got 7 stores. Um, Before lockdown, you know, up to lockdown, we had about 55 people working for me. You know, various different people, you know, various different roles. We had outsourcers. We had a, you know, really good team. We were really growing like month on month, year on year. Huge growth, huge 1 store a year opening. Um, you know, working with events all over the world in Las Vegas, in you know for a major corporate events in with the Champions League, TV, you know, TV appearances everywhere. You know, doing it was just really just magnificent, right? Just coming from this
Mm,
thing, just these doors opening up.
mm,
Um, you know, and now I've built the brand, which
mm.
is the story, you know, and I think this is very powerful to sort of when you talk about brand and people talk about brand and everyone's got their own meaning to it. For me, brand is your story. It's your business story.
Yes.
It's what
Yes.
people can identify with, and then
Absolutely.
the marketing is literally how you tell that story.
Yeah.
And that's really what we're working on right now is how we're doing that. And because we've spent a lot of time researching, like Pall Mall is actually a royal game, and it was played by kings and queens on the lawn of the Mall, and Palais it was the game, and it was played on the mouse. So, and it was like golf. It was a derivative of golf. So there's
Right.
correlation. That's where golf come from. I don't know if that's true, but it's kind of like that sort of journey.
Yeah.
It goes back, and originally they had the courts of the Pall Mall, like golf courses, what they used to
Mm,
have, or Pall Mall courses.
mm.
Um, and then basically they turned the malls into shopping because they were long, and that's where the word shopping mall comes from. It's mad. I only found this out a little while ago, right?
Interesting.
And this is true. It's just the history of shopping malls, right? Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
and Pall Mall. Then Pall Mall become famous for gentlemen's clubs. You know, it was like the higher echelons and so on and so forth. And it's got that sort of that place in London, which is kind of like that. So once I discovered that we were part of that, can you imagine having that as a brand story?
I mean, that's powerful in itself, right? Because as you say, Pall Mall has a very much a central heart, a central place in London's story, heritage, etc. Especially as you say with the upper echelons and etc. So it has a rich heritage. So it's definitely something that you can feed into your story. I mean, even if you just say you have a barbershop in Pall Mall, instantly you know the prices are double or triple.
Well, yeah, well, you're going to pay more than the average barbershop for sure, but it's one of them things. But also, it was kind of interesting because when I was younger, you know, when I was starting this journey, I started to do business courses. I went to the British Library and Innovation for Growth program, and shouts out to them because they you know there was Julie and a few of the other people what were amazing to me on my journey, and this was really the start where basically they you know I started the program and I started to learn you know little bits, and one of the guys turned around and he said, "What's the biggest thing can happen to your business?" You know, what is the, and for me, I was thinking actually it was the royal crest, right? And this was
Mm,
many years before. And then we didn't get the crest. We haven't got that yet. But what I got is I got my brand being tied to the royals, right? Royal kings and queens of the past, and you know all these manner of different stories and stuff. And then
mm.
out of the blue, we had a visit from Prince William.
Out of the blue.
Yeah. Well, it was a bit more than that. It was kind of like that. It was like a bit out of the blue. Um, it was to some guys what we were working with around men's mental health,
Right.
and you know we were doing some stuff because you know a man in a barber's chair is you know there's something about the relationship with a barber and a guy sitting there and just opening up and telling him his barber. It's like a taxi driver. You know, you
Yes.
upload your stuff and it's not, you haven't got that relationship where they're going to tell anyone. You don't, it's kind
Yes.
of like it's into the ether.
Yes.
And so there's a lot of trust what goes into your barber and what you tell them. So
Mm,
we'd been working with a group of people about doing the men's mental health and suicide prevention and
mm,
education to our clients and so on and this
mm,
type of thing. And then it
mm,
was just I got a phone call when I was open in New York, and then they want to have an event in our store, in one of our
mm,
stores, and that was it. And then it just all started. So that was
mm,
kind of amazing because I got to host the event, and
mm,
there was a group of people I was with, my team and others. Everyone done a great job, and I got to meet them at the car. The bikes come up. We had to deal with the security beforehand. All the raw protection. Then the motorbikes come. And then they come in, and I got to meet Prince William, and we connected. We had a great time. We had so much fun, and it was one of these moments. It was a beautiful day. It was on Valentine's Day, and yeah, it was just really good. But one of the things what really sparked for me was,
mm.
and I really this was really moving for me. Um, we went, and it was all about mental health, and it was all about suicide prevention, and it was all about men specifically, because there's a lot of guys just don't talk about this stuff.
Yeah.
And that was what it was. And one of the things which really, when Prince William was sitting down and he was talking, now the reason why I say this, because normally he was in the barber's chair and I wouldn't say this, but because it's about raising awareness, and I want to put it out there into the universe. He opened up about his own stuff with when his mother, and the
Mm,
press and the
mm,
pressure, and opened up about his childhood and stuff, growing up
mm,
as a little boy, and that was really really powerful for me, and it just
mm.
sort of changed the game. Thinking, we look at these people, but they're just human.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
human. Imagine like everyone was looking at him and all this kind of stuff. So that was really really powerful for me.
So yeah, I mean, you kind of made a connection, and you could, I guess, it humanizes them essentially, right? As you see them in the flesh, and they can open up and be vulnerable. That must have been pretty good. Did you? I mean, it sounds like this the business course or the course that you done played quite a key part in sort of you stepping up the game and for your business. How would you say your outlook changed after going through this course or learning these other aspects of business?
Um, I think realistically, it started off with the fundamental basics of just pure business: how to do things, how to bookkeep, how to manage, how to run a barber shop or a salon, and it was very like low, sort of just basic information about how to do things.
Mm,
And then marketing and how to build, market, how to get clients through the door and stuff like that. Some of that I
mm,
learned on video. Some of it I learned in actually classrooms with different people.
mm,
Um, but really, it was a journey. It was actually a total journey for me to do that. It wasn't like one thing done it. It was my experience.
mm,
And then once I'd done the sort of head stuff, how to do things in your head kind of thing,
mm,
then I
mm,
really started to work on myself. And when I started to do self development and understanding, my own wiring and really sort of understanding what makes me tick and my belief system of values and things like
mm,
that. And when I could actually change them and adapt and understand what I wanted to do with my life, then
mm.
that's when I got into a proper flow.
Nice, nice. I love that. A proper flow. Proper flow. At which point did you? What year would you say that sort of started coming together? When did you start seeing a step change and started? Really. I think you said it's about 7 years ago. You said what
Yes.
what happened? What were your how? What did that look like?
2012, year of the Olympics, probably one of the best years of my life. Other than 2019, that was pretty epic. 2012 was amazing, and I built up my Pall Mall with one store, and I got it to a point, and then I started my courses, and then I learned a lot, and then basically, and I started to read and start to practice reading and stuff, and then I put a manager in to the store and got that operational, so I could take
Mm.
some time out, and then I
Mm.
went to Brazil, and I went traveling for 2012, and I spent a lot of time away, and I really was trying to find out what I wanted to do with my life, like what journey, what route did I want to take? Did I want to go and sit on a beach? Did I want to go and travel? Did I want to go and get into property, or do I want to grow my brand? And at that time, I come back and I chose to grow Pall Mall Barbers, and that's what I done. And then from 2012, I just went on a tear up. I just
Nice.
I just tore it up, and I just went on a rampage, and just grew store after store after store, chair after chair after chair, and I got into flow with it. And when we were in flow, it was just ridiculous, really. Stuff was just coming through the door, TV, events. It was just like we were just once you make that decision and you go for it, and stuff starts coming in, it's just like an avalanche. Once you
Yeah.
find purpose and your right journey, never forget
I,
it. It's incredible.
I love how you took time off. Like you trained up your lieutenant. He said, "Look, I'm going away. It's all on you now." And you actually, it's like you needed to step away from the business to actually reflect and understand where do you want to go. And I think that's very important because when you're in the day to day doing, you don't really get the opportunity to take a step back and really ask why, look at your 10-year plan, and etc. So I think that does sound like a super key thing that you've done and that you managed to do and identify that you had to do in order to go to the next level.
100%. And one of the turning points for me, I think, really was I studied NLP, and I studied it because I was doing lots of self development, and I knew that it kept coming up. People kept talking about it, and so
Mm,
and one day I thought, right, I'm going to study this, and I I started to study it in a business context where they contextualized it towards business, and that was really game changing for me. But
mm,
what was really powerful was when I studied. I was living in Spain some of the time, and they had a course on Spanish, but learning through NLP, and basically I was struggling to learn, and because I had so many limiting beliefs about learning from my childhood, right? Even
mm,
though I'd sort
mm,
of been doing it, but it was really hard for me to take on information and really apply myself to that.
mm,
And one of the things is Dr. John Grinder, who's one of the co-creators of NLP. He kind of just turned around and explained to me how I learn.
mm,
And we were talking about it, and he explained to me how I learn, and it's visual kinesthetic. It's you have to do it, you have to feel it, and you have to repeat it. And then when I realized that, I was like, okay, then just things went to a whole nother level. Just
right.
I had just had a massive breakthrough, and it was just like wow, because when you're programmed in a certain way from your childhood, you have these beliefs and these way of thinking. Like when you're at the bottom of the class and you're useless and you get kicked out and all, you carry that for your life, right? You carry
Yeah. Yeah.
your life, whether you like it or not. You think no, I'm not, but you do. Once that broke, and I realized how I learned, I was like, it was just game changing. So, and to give you some context, I've just started, I'm just starting my MBA. Um,
Nice.
so I'm going back to learn, because I think it's all about innovation and recreation and development or constant. And
Absolutely.
so I've gone back and I've studied, I'm studying an MBA in innovation, technology, and disruption, and that's just very current to the new business models and the way the world's going right now. So what
Yeah.
me and one of my friends are, a good friend of mine, what I've known for many years, we're both basically studying it together, and I know it's just going to be so much fun.
I love that you've taken yourself back to school, and that's the thing of as a sort of business owner, entrepreneur, you should never really stop learning. And whether or not you need a bit of structure to help you, to help you focus and give you that sort of path, or you do it by yourself, and you could do both. But it's great that you're a self learner, and you identify with that as well.
Yeah, and also the other thing what I would say, one of the key things I've found, and I just want to add some value, is really it's about who you surround yourself with. So
Absolutely.
so important. Like your unconscious mind is just so powerful. And
Yes.
if when I was in Brazil, I couldn't speak any Portuguese, right? And no one could speak English. And I tell you what, within a couple of days, I was speaking Portuguese. And I really was, and I'd never spoke any Portuguese before in my life, and I was speaking Portuguese, right? And because I had no option, right? There was when
That's
you
it.
go to Spain, when I was living in Spain, it's like, you right, mate? Or, all right. And it's easy, whereas it's easy. But when you've got no route, when they don't communicate, it's like, oh, this is going to be hard. You you
Yeah.
you do. It's really strange how it works. But one of the things which I've found is really understanding who you're surrounding yourself with. And if you want
Yeah.
to grow and you want to develop, find people what ahead of you, and find people that are around what you're doing, and start talking to them, sharing your experience of your sticking points, and asking the people ahead of you how they've done it. And that's been amazing for me to sort of understand.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. You're, as they're saying, you're the average of the five people that you hang around with most, or something like that. And there's so much truth to that. Absolutely. Um, Rich, so you've done well. You seem like you've got a good head on your shoulders. What made you? How did you differentiate Pall Mall? I don't know how much competition you have around you, and if that was a struggle, because you know barbering's quite a sort of intimate thing, and as you said, you had your personal clients, perhaps not too far in the area. But how did you go about marketing Pall Mall, positioning it? How did you differentiate? What do you feel like you brought to the table, or the brand?
It's a massive question, right? Because it's constantly changing as well, right? And it's constantly changing. Things are changing regularly, right? Market's changing. Market's going to change again. I've got predictions of what my personal view of what's going to happen and what we're doing as a brand, which is totally not totally different, but it's different to what we were doing before. Um, Same thing of cutting hair, but it may be a different way of different things are changing. For
Mm,
me, I think what happened is I just focused on what was working, and I just
mm,
really got in tune and lived my business, lived in it, lived it, and really got in tune with the people and the clients, and just worked out on resolving problems for them, making
mm,
it better, and just trying to make
mm,
it as best as we could, um,
mm,
and making the connections better, making it more easy for them to use the product, getting a better product, giving them, offering them more product to, if they're having a haircut, for example, the products, how they book online. We have this amazing app now, which is
mm,
like payment, like Uber. It's kind of, we've constantly just kept going to the next level, working out what the sticking points and just improving them.
mm,
Years ago, I kind of looked at other businesses in my sector when I was starting out, and you got this tendency to look what they're doing and sort of, oh, that
mm,
looks good, let me do that. But then I realized, actually, the way to really innovation is understanding your own stuff,
mm,
understanding where your sticking points are, understanding where the problems are, and then solving them. So realistically, from an internal or my perspective, it's very much to do with that's my strategy. In terms of what makes us different, I think we've really gone into other than the actual brand look and feel, the service, the offering. There's a lot of places cut hair, but then I think there's a level of consistency. There's a level of like professionalism. There's a level of like the vibe what we have, and we're only going to make that better as things progress. So. Yeah, there's multiple things what we do which is different. I don't really look at my competitors that much. I'm
Mm.
not really interested in like what they're doing. I'm interested in how our own reports are and how we can grow our own business, if that makes sense. A very data driven, numbers driven, people driven kind of system.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a one thing of if you differentiate yourself so much, you focus on the customer first, then competition is irrelevant. Because you're just focusing on the customer, making sure that you're always there for them, answering their problems, or they're always there when they need you. Then that in itself will build your loyalty. It build your brand equity, um, and therefore your more sales as well. So absolutely agree. Um, so you've opened 7 stores, and I think you haven't spoke about your New York store as well. I
Oh,
believe.
baby.
Is that your baby?
This one, baby.
how did how did that come about, and what made you go across the pond?
Um, well, it's kind of interesting. It goes back to my childhood, right? Um, and the real truth of it is, I was watching Trading Places as a kid, and I fell in love with the skyline of New York. The old guy sitting down and watching the skyline. And from a young age, I just had a dream of going to New York, right? I just had a dream. I was really just fascinated, like I was with London as this guy, little kid on a bus. I was fascinated by, this city and these tall buildings and just exploring, and it was just one of them things. It was just in me, like I wanted to go to London, and then, started living here and opening businesses.
Mm,
But then New York was the same thing, really. It was just one of these
mm,
things. And then basically what happened is, when I went to New York, I had some friends there, and I just fell in love with the spirit. I wanted to live there and move there, and I nearly did multiple
it's a
times.
great place.
It's a
Yeah.
great vibe, and but then I was there in January once, and I just thought, no, it's not for me. I'll leave it to someone else. But the reality is like, when I went there a few times, I used to walk the streets, and I used to write notes, and I used to think about it, and I used to, get to know all the areas and stuff like that. And I was just fascinated in exploring every street, and I'd go there and I'd walk 10, 15, 20 miles a day, and, just walking everywhere. And I was just fascinated exploring. And so, that said, and I really wanted to open a business there, and I didn't know how I was going to do it. Then
Mm,
I've got these amazing grooming products. So these men's grooming products, what we developed, and we've got this beautiful cologne, sandalwood and clove, shaving products, hair care, beard oils, and basically I took them to a distributor, and we were launching them at New York Now, which is a big
mm,
distributor sort of in New York. And so it was just after Brit exit, and everything I'd working on collapsed after that day. And I went to New York to launch the products, because I went there, and it was really successful, amazing.
mm.
Like, we sold out products, and I'm not sure whether it was the products or my accent, because most of the buyers were female, and they were just digging my accent, and I had this little like bulldog, and I was, hey, excuse me, would you like to stroke my dog? And then they it was just like cracking up, and it was just fun. I was just playing, having fun, right? And
Yeah,
just
yeah.
buying all this stock, and and it was just, we got orders and orders and orders, and then I was having a break. I went on lunch from it, and my feet were killing me. But I went up from the Javits Center over to New York, and I went to the Rock Center,
Mm,
and I walked into the Rock Center, and then I saw the shoe shine place. It's called Eddie's Shoe Shine. Hugo is an amazing guy, right?
right.
And he has this shoe shine place, and it's the busiest place in New York, right? It's just rammed with business people. There's queues down the door. He has lots of faces in there. It's kind of like, it's kind of like traditional, but it's really cool. And I was
Yeah.
standing outside, and I thought, what a great place to have a barbershop next to the shoe shine place. And then I
Mm,
looked, and there was a space next door for free. So we called them. And then the next day, I met with the guys, and they said, well, we can't give you that one. And it was Tishman Spire, which is a really, a big landlord in New York. Basically, they're a big institution, and then
Right.
they take me around to this space around the corner, and then basically they tell me about this space, and it's a big space, and about 900 square foot, which is quite big, double, triple of our stores what we have in London.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it turns out that Nick Howe, the agent, the leasing director at Tishman Speyer,
Mm.
he's he used to come to one of my barbershops in London where I used to work in, and we had
Ah.
friends in common. And I was like, "Where's your accent from London?" And we started talking, and then we made the connection. And then it was kind of like, it was just serendipity. And then I had a vision of what it would be like. So
Mm.
I was there, and I had this vision, and I sort of said to the guys, "Look, can you imagine this right in a bar, you know?" And I told them how it would be, and it took 2.5 years to get
Mm.
over the line.
Mm.
It was a real problem, but the thing is, we got it done. We got it done. We
Mm.
got through all the challenges. It was a lot of challenge. The hardest thing I've ever done.
Really?
About a date, yeah. I lost hair. I lost sleep. Um, I kind of went to New York by myself. I'll never forget the feeling of when I was going over to sign the lease for 15 years. And I was on the plane, and it was like this panic. It was like, well, it wasn't panic. It was excitement, but it felt like panic. And it was intense feeling. It was amazing. And it was just like, wow. Because I was by myself, right? So you're going to this big city,
Yeah.
and then actually doing the shop fit, it was just like, wow, this is so tough. But I got through it and learned a lot. Everything I'd ever learned in my life, all the life experiences from my childhood right through, I needed every ounce of that to deal with what I had to deal with in that experience in New York. But I got it
Mm.
done, and then I remember from that it just went on a whirlwind, right? We started to win awards. um,
Mm.
One of the highlights. So we won the Border Trade Award from Dr. Liam Fox for international trade, and it's a special award we get. My team
Okay.
had to go and pick it up. Then we got nominated for the RLI magazine Rising Star Award in March, and that was in Universal Studios in LA. So I went out for a networking event and won it in Universal Studios. This is made, and it's really high level. So it's like all the
Mm.
top hotels, and it was really, and that was kind of where things started to really sort of like, when you start to feel you've accomplished quite a lot. It was kind of that.
Yeah.
That was such a good feeling. Um, and things like that's just started to happen. It just started to roll from there, really. And 2019 was a pretty amazing year, but then 2020, it's sort of like, it's different, right?
It's very different, and that's a fantastic story. I mean, I can only imagine the stress of a 15-year lease. It's a big commitment. But so how have you managed this year or last year, 2020? How you said you had 50 employees or so, and you got 7 locations. It's been a tough year, right? Could you give us some reflection notes?
Yeah, well, a lot of bricks and mortar places, people with stores and stuff like that. It's really tough, right? It's a tough situation, and it's made tougher by landlords. It's how
Mm.
landlords treat you. Some are good, some are not good. So if they're all good, it would be easier. But if some of them are not good, then my personal experience, if it depends on them how it's going to be.
Yeah.
Um, you have to remind them that stuff is real. People are dying, and things are happening, and it's not a good situation. Some people
Mm.
don't care; they just want their rents and so on, and that's it. Others
Yeah.
are empathy and willing to support you. I believe in
Yeah.
karma,
Mm.
so I believe what you
Mm.
put out, you get back. So some of the people, have to, you know, live with that, so to speak. For
Mm.
me, I found what we had to do is restructure the business. So
Mm.
we restructured, and quite quickly, because I had to make some quick decisions, because I in March last year I didn't know what to do. I was like, wow,
Mm.
how long are we going to shut? 2 weeks, 3 weeks, how long could we survive? How long, all these questions, right? We didn't know.
Yeah.
But I realized that really we had to restructure and take out all our costs.
Mm.
And that's what
Mm.
we've done. So we introduced tech, we introduced like new systems. We replaced, a lot of our infrastructure with new digital centralization of technology. And me and my project manager, Lilia, she's awesome, and we work really hard, at developing the new systems of remodeling the whole business. So realistically, what happened was when we come back, when we started trading again in July, I was like, right, okay, we had a little bit of a deadline at the end, but we were like, well, what's going to happen? Is this going to work? And to be
Mm.
honest, it worked brilliantly. The whole thing what we set up, and we just had to restructure and change what we were doing. We had a lot of people, people like moved away. So a lot of our team
Mm.
went back to Italy, or they went back to Poland, or they went back
Mm.
home, and people moved out of London. A lot of people moved away. So
Mm.
really, it kind of worked out
Mm.
naturally. It wasn't like a big thing where we had to make, cut everything. It was kind of like, it was just organic, just like things moved, and it just all flowed into the right space.
Yeah.
And I just had to shape it and make some good decisions.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's the key to, or to any sort of business owner's success is adapting to your changing environment, and it's been a hell of a change last year for sure. And I could imagine this prompted a lot of business owners to look at their business, look at the cost structure, and and think about how you're going to get back to serving customers in a new environment, in a new sort of dynamic. What specific technologies did you have to deploy in order to, you know, cope? What specifically were you trying to do or achieve?
um, well, I think like the part of technology, right, is integrating from sort of like from the back end to the front, or the front end to the back. So from the client journey right through to the administration. And depending on what perspective you got, you're either going to start from the back end, which is the administration, to the front end, or I prefer to work from the client perspective of how to make it easier for them, and then come through to how you make that work from the back end, and
Mm.
make it work. So
Mm.
we basically rebuilt our whole infrastructure, because bearing in mind, I grew from like me behind a barber's chair to 50 people busy in 7 years, right?
Mm.
That's some growth, right?
Mm.
And bricks and mortar and stuff without any investment. So it wasn't like we went to investors or anything. That was organically, a few bank loans, a bit of credit card, you know, bit of elbow grease, and we were kind of there. And
Mm.
but one thing I'd never done is actually really looked at the operational side. Now I worked on a program with Be the Business. I got suggested by Michelle Field, from DIT, for the British government international trade, and she contacted me with Newable, and basically they put me on a course, and they give me a mentor. And
Mm.
my mentor was I don't know if I say his name, but he was someone at John Lewis, very senior, operations
Mm.
director for John Lewis. Dave, his
Right.
name is, and Dave is an amazing human being, very intelligent,
Mm.
very very clever, and basically what happened was he just really run past me about how operations work on a massive, massive industrial scale. And
Mm.
that's when I started to really open my mind to thinking how else you could do it rather than the way I was doing it. Because I only know what I know,
Mm.
and what I've learned and from my experience, whereas he had a wealth of experience. So talking to him and working with that was game changing in terms of how we could adjust to get this growth, and how we could
Yeah.
restructure. But I'd done that in 2019, and it was all in my head, and I had a plan.
Mm.
We were ready to do it, and then COVID happened, and it meant we had the space to actually execute and get it done.
Right. Nice. So you actually had the plan in place and an idea of where you wanted to go, and yeah, this sort of reprieve gave you uh, time to a window of opportunity to put those in. That's
Exactly that. We just had this like space where we wanted to do it. We'd already started. We were negotiating about this sort of stuff. We had the infrastructure, and then it was just we had the window to make the most of, and that's what we done. And we just built it out, and it was kind of then we could press the button and get it done. Look, in March lockdown, we worked so hard. Like
mm,
there was a few of us what worked, and a lot of people didn't, and we were working like ridiculous to get it all done. But then it really showed, because once we launched all this new tech product and stuff, it was just amazing, because we went to like 85% online bookings and app bookings.
mm.
Like, and we were already having a lot, but it was just like really
What was it before?
um we had a lot of phone calls, people booking on the phone.
Right.
So we had a lot of phone bookings, we had a lot of phone bookings. There was a lot of other people walking in and stuff like that. And all of a sudden, it just switched. Phone didn't ring, all online bookings. And it was just like, wow, it's just like we went from 12 receptionists,
Mm,
probably 12, 8, something like that. I don't know, and
mm,
literally it narrowed right down, because we just weren't getting phone calls. And the
mm,
whole
mm.
process of pre-booking and all this kind of stuff, people putting their credit cards on apps and stuff like that, it just slickened the whole process. But we have a thing now, which is like, even like to people checking in, they walk into the store, and basically if they've got the setting open, the Bluetooth open on the phone, as soon as
Mm.
they walk in, it checks in and lets the barber know the client's there.
Oh, that's smart. That is really smart.
and and it's like now we're working on this level of, you know, the Uber-esque, the Deliveroo, these kind of like that, them tech companies, like that's kind of really like slick. And how it's not only having that ability, but it's how you utilize it.
And it's like, I think customers these days appreciate that ease. That you have to really remove the friction for customers, and this 2020, the whole COVID thing has really pushed pushed everybody to adopt these technologies or these other avenues of doing things. Um, and so, companies like yourself, where you had a small portion of online bookings or mainly just phone, it's a natural. Well, now it's natural. This is customers have to use online now. If they're ordering groceries, you might use online more. Like, this technology has really seen an explosion last year.
I think it's only, I think like stuff what I've been learning recently, it's only the beginning, because data and the way we, the patterns of humans is quite predictable.
Mm.
So I think as soon as we this starts the artificial intelligence and all the new stuff coming out, I think it's going to be really fascinating how things are going to transition over, and also voice, right?
Yes, yes, Alexa.
Do you know what I mean? How that's changing, and the old thing of the telephone. Now it's like how why are we typing?
Yeah, yeah.
You know, in 5 years, are we going to be typing? Are we going to be talking to our computer?
So you essentially need to tap into, or I don't know how you do it now, but Alexa and Google Home. So you want people to say, "Book me an appointment for 9:30 on Saturday at Pall Mall Barbers." And there you go. It's done.
Can we have 1 million of them, please? And buying some products and telling all their friends
Yes.
and leaving us Google reviews. That would be amazing.
Has On that topic, has Google reviews helped you? What have you seen that pays dividends in terms of your marketing spend? Where do you focus your efforts?
Well, it's kind of interesting, because I'm going to give a general answer, right? So rather than specific, but I'm going to do that for a good reason, because I want to sort of add value. Basically, for me, when I sort of looked at my marketing, right, and this is really powerful, because when you look externally, you look at what everyone else is doing and you copy. you don't ever really sort of know if it's working or not. And my experience has been actually to understand what's actually working, what are the metrics. So how can you measure what you're doing and the returns and the success of that? That's one of the keys. Once you have, like, now we have so much data coming in on everything we do, it's trackable. So basically it's very trackable, so we can see the results of stuff, and that's how we work out what's working. And then once you work out what's working, you just do more of it.
And what's worked for you? What is working? What has worked?
Well, basically, yeah, search SEO, search engine optimization has been a big thing for us. You know, obviously, social media is another thing, which is you know, big. We've done a bit of it, but now we're working on a lot more different strategies to do with that. Word of mouth is particularly powerful. You know, doing good jobs for people. You know, doing good by people, looking after people. You know, doing good quality haircuts and then telling their friends and stuff like that. Really, really powerful for us. You know, and obviously building, you know, consistency and stuff like that. And now we're working much more on client experience. Obviously, with COVID, we haven't been able to do that so much because everyone's wearing a mask and stuff like that. But we're working with some promotions and some partnerships. So when we get back open and we get past COVID, we've got all these different client experiences what we're bringing in to kind of bring them into the store. And really what I find, not only does that you give that much more, but sometimes you can give much more without costing you anything because you develop a partnership with a different company.
Yeah.
And that's really where we're working at, and you know, that's been really good for us. So it's not one thing, it's just like doing lots of things. You know, it's like lots of different activities. Each location's got a different thing what works. Some of it's the same, some of it's not the same. Some of it works, some of it doesn't, you know. So, but having a really good product in terms of your service levels, the way you treat people, the way you treat your team, basically that's the game changing thing, you know. It's having that interaction, that human thing, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And I think, you know, as you kind of mentioned, all of these are compound effects. You kind of have to come out from all angles. If it's digital, if it's word of mouth, or if it's SEO, or you know, all these things add up. But ultimately, as you say, you know, as long as you deliver on your product or service, and you know that is, you know, the crux of everything, really. Couldn't agree more. Rich, so just trying to just wrapping this up. What would you what does 2021 look like? What plans do you have? Obviously it's still tricky times at the moment, and what sort of parting advice would you give to our listeners?
Good question. Thank you for that. Right. So 2021 for me, basically is, I was surprised by the new lockdown, by the way. So I wasn't prepared for this lockdown, and it looks like it's going to go on for a little while. So, you know, pivoting into, you know, what else can you do with this time? One of the things is what we're looking at different things, and we're lucky that we're setting up a lot more e-commerce and digital and going down that line. So we're pivoting into fully into that with a number of my team, and we've got some great support and stuff what we're doing. So digital products and services is something we're really working on right now, which is going to be game changing for us. I've got a partnership, hopefully what I'm working on, which is game changing, which I'm waiting to hear about next week. I've got a big conversation with someone which they've been interested in working with us for quite a while, and they've got a new project. So that's kind of in the pipeline, which is, there's always that going on with one way or another, but it's always good to have them conversations ongoing because it's exciting.
Absolutely.
You know, and then one of the things what I would say really about to you know, your listeners, believe in yourself. Just start believing in yourself. Believe you can do it. You know, one of the things what I had in my head when I was going through my little hell my personal hell was whatever this takes. And that was my frame. That was what I relabeled. I didn't confidence is just about doing it. It's about the action. It's about doing it. It's not how you feel doing it. You know, whether you're emotional or nervous or not, that's not confidence for me. Confidence is doing it anyway. You know, just going for it and stepping into it. And I would say just start to believe in yourself.
Believe in yourself. You can do it. Rich, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for joining us. And where can people find you before we go?
Right. So Instagram at Pall Mall Barbers. That you can message me on there. I'd love to hear from you. So give us a message, give us a follow, stuff like that. Twitter at Pall Mall Barbers as well. I receive them directly to me. So if you want to engage, just reach out there. And if you're interested in any male grooming products, then pallmallbarbers.com. You'll find a great selection of products there.
You heard it first, guys. All right. Well, thanks a lot, Rich, and all the best. We'll keep in touch.
Thank you very much.
Hey, everybody. It's Richard here. I hope you enjoyed the show with Rich Marshall of Pall Mall Barbers. It was great that he managed to take himself away from the business to reassess his priorities and then come back all guns blazing. Then he had a flying few years in the run-up to COVID, but like many businesses, he had to reassess the options, adapt the business model to an increasingly changing environment that most entrepreneurs have found themselves in. I felt he'd done a really good thing to dive deeper into the story of the brand to position Pall Mall as that premium British barber experience that he has successfully been able to export. So, with that said, thanks a million for listening. If you haven't subscribed to the show, please do, because it really helps. If you're listening through iTunes, if you could leave us a review, that would be great. We're on Instagram. You can find us at It's Just Business HQ. And I'm really looking forward to the next episode. So until then, keep pushing.